Hey guys, what's up? Chris here for Beer Geek Nation. I'm joined by a very special guest, my kind of brewing hero. Not to be a dork, but definitely you guys know Firestone Walker, one of my favorite breweries. They do an amazing beers. We're here in Denver for the GABF Special Firestone Walker Dinner. You guys are pairing a bunch of special beers tonight, basically anniversary 12 through 16, debuting 16 as far as I know. So, I mean, what can we look forward to in 16, anniversary 16 that's coming up pretty soon?
Well, I guess maybe to start back at the beginning, you had asked me earlier what some of my favorite beers we're going to be pouring tonight are, and to be completely honest with you, it's almost every time we pull these beers out, I'm a little taken back at which one stands out, so I have a hard time answering that question. Talking about 16, in fact, just last night I was writing up some of my tasting notes on it, and even though I've got a little cold, I was tasting the result, and I'm super stoked. These last couple of years have been these really well integrated beers. I think that a combination between the aging program developing and us having over 1,000 barrels in the program now, we've got a lot to choose from. So everything is really in the zone when we get into it. But these last 2 years have been these well-integrated beers. I think the winemakers are really getting into the groove. I don't know if you heard this before, but the last 2 years we've now got about a dozen. I think we had 14 people sitting at the table, a dozen of which were winemakers this year. We had a similar number last year, and so when you get that many chefs in the kitchen, it's almost too many people to make any kind of concrete decision.
Right.
So we pair up the winemakers. We give them all the same beers to work with, but they as a team come up with a blend. And we go behind closed doors, we make those blends back up, and we almost have like a mini GABF competition. We actually have them sit down blindly, taste through all the blends, and pick their first, second, and third, and then we reveal the winner. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's kind of like my next question was, how do you not offend people who, pick these blends, and ultimately does it come down to what you want rather than what the winemakers want?
I mean, that's the beauty of the program, is that no, we always do what the winemakers want. And there have been a couple years. In fact, last year was one where they used a lot of hoppy beer, and it scared the pants off me because we know that a lot of those hoppy aromatics don't age well.
Right.
But the last 2 years, Saxum Winery, the team of Justin Smith and Mark Adams, and if you know much about wine, Saxum last year was named best wine in the world in their top 100 by Wine Spectator.
Okay.
So I mean, we're talking world-class winemaker in the Paso Robles region, star child, golden boy, and what happens is last year he wins the blending thing. So we're all like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
And year two, he wins again. So obviously, Justin Smith and Mark Adams have a knack for this. They're both beer lovers, which is really cool.
Right.
But every year it's a mystery, and you asked if I get involved, and we don't interfere. And I think this method of pairing up the winemakers, allowing them to make their ultimate blend as a team, and then come back together and have to judge their own work. That way I can't offend them. There's no way that anybody can be upset except at themselves.
Right.
And most of the time they all agree. I mean, that's the one they picked. It's the best blend on the table. Right. What are you going to do?
Now, if it were up to you, and the Firestone Walker has an absolutely epic barrel program, what would be one beer that maybe has or hasn't been released that you would say, all right, we're putting that in bottles, regardless of what people think?
Well, and again, we talked about this earlier. Tonight we're going to be pouring some of the single components, and Sticky Monkey, as goofy as the name sound, has been one that's really stood out. And we're using Belgian D2 sugar, so it's got a little bit of that Belgian candy sugar thing going on. We're also using Mexican unrefined sugars as well, which also have a little bit of that molasses kind of characteristic to them. It's a beer that runs wonderfully in our brew house, so we get a really clean beer in the finish, and it picks up barrel character. So I think, next year we're going to release Velvet Merkin on its own. And so we've been barreling down that beer to make sure we've got enough for next year's release. 2014 Sticky Monkey will probably see the light of day unless something else comes out of the woodwork that we really love. But I think, and I don't know if you wanted to talk about this or not, but the thing I'm really excited about right now is that, okay, if you take a step back, Firestone started putting a single beer, double barrel ale, fermenting it in oak, and blending the barrels together. So I kind of consider that our first and original barrel project. Then we did this whole thing for our 10th anniversary, which we created these anniversary beers that we're going to taste tonight. And that became our barrel aging project. And that's blending barley wines, imperial stouts, imperial brown ales, and the like. Now we're embarking on our third barrel project, which is a bit of a step into the unknown. We've taken our Brynildson facility, which is a 20,000 square foot built-to-purpose brewery building, and taken a spot out of it to become Barrel Works. And Barrel Works is going to be our third project of doing secondary fermentation, critter beers, sour beers, wild ales, feral ales, whatever you want to call them, far away from our clean beer program. And that project is underway, and we filled close to 300 barrels already. In the works, using some working names, we have Little Opal that we've released in the past. That's going to be basically our representation of a low alcohol saison that we're going to work on. And that'll be the base that allow us to go with, fruit if we want to, wine grapes if we want to, and other things. It's a nice base beer. And then we have Slow Ambic, and that's our Alola Berry lambic that we've been working on for a few years. And then I think what'll probably end up being the cornerstone of the program, if Little Opal isn't, will be a Grestic ale. And a Grestic, if you've heard about it, is basically, I don't even want to say that we're going to come anywhere within, a galaxy of this thing, but it's the closest thing we'll do to Orval in that we're taking DBA, regular 100% oak fermented, DBA at 30 IBUs and all its wonderfulness and unfiltered, and inoculating it with Brettanomyces and doing a barrel aging of that. And so a Grestic will be kind of our rustic version of DBA in the Belgian theme.
It sounds horrible. I wouldn't even bother with it. But
well, for years and years, I've been working for Firestone now for 12 years, and for years I've said I'm not going into the Belgian world in this brewery. We've got enough going on within the English themed beers and the American themed beers and the hoppy beers for a lifetime. And here we are with a lot of running room to do this project. So, it'll be a lot of fun.
Well, you guys just got basically a brand new brew house, more or less.
Yeah.
What do you
more than less, it's brand new.
Oh, yeah. What do you see for that, in the future, 5 years from now?
What's so wonderful about working for Firestone, working with David and Adam, is that they've been so willing to reinvest in the brewery and take all the profits each year and fold them back into the company to build a better brewery. And it's been about quality since day one. And I feel so blessed to work for a company that has owners that want to do that, and also allow myself and the brewing team the creative, wherewithal to do these kind of things. And so we basically, over the years, dreamt up our dream brew house, and it became a reality this year. So I'm like a pig in shit or a kid in the candy store. It's amazing, and it's running really smoothly. We stayed at essentially a 50 to 65 barrel brew length, which means that we're still able to make very small batches of beer like we always have, but the thing can get up and run up to 16 brews a day. So we can fill big fermenters if we need to, little fermenters for specialty stuff. We retained all our flexibility and added a number of components like wet milling, automated lautering, hop dosing, sugar dosing, a bunch of things we didn't have before that we were doing very manually. It's just amazing. So it's in a nutshell, it's running very well, and I'm very excited.
That's awesome. It's great for expansions as far as distribution that you know of?
Yeah, I would say that you'll see Firestone enter one new market at least in 2013 if all goes well, and that'll be Texas.
Okay. Cool.
Maybe not all of Texas, but certainly the Dallas-Fort Worth area, if we can align ourselves with the right wholesaler. We've taken a very slow and methodical approach to distribution because every year, we will grow over 20% in Ventura, Santa Barbara, and SLO counties in the middle of California. And that's our original market. You would have thought we hit the point of saturation. And if you're not from the Central Coast, we released a new product this year called 805. And 805 is our second, after 16 years of brewing, our second release specifically for the Central Coast. It's actually a nice blonde ale, and it uses Gambrinus honey malt, lower in IBU than DBA, but it's just taken off like wildfire within our own region, and I think we're tapping and turning new people onto craft beer with that beer. So, we're still kind of turning inward and growing our existing markets. So something like Texas seems like so far away from home, and hopefully it'll be well received there.
I'm from the Philly market. You guys hit Philly, so I mean, I can't argue with that. Last question, I won't hold you up. If there was one, say, beer style that you could brew, nothing else, last beer style, what would it be, and why?
I mean, I'm kind of doing that now with Pilsner. Pivo is a project that no one else in the organization wanted to do. It doesn't fit the theme of Firestone. We've been making Hefeweizen for 5 years, and it's never sold under the Firestone name. It's blended into Solus. So I've got a soft spot for German-style beers, and as a brewer, I think that the classics, being able to brew pale ale, being able to brew IPA, and all those things are great, but trying to brew a great lager is quite a challenge. And between having this new brew house and once again having some creative license, Pivo is kind of that beer. It's already happening, but it is that beer. And I think back to Barrel Works, I think that we'll create some beers there that we'll get to exercise some things that maybe we would never do before. And what I forgot to mention is that heading up that project, besides myself, are Jim Crooks, our quality manager, and Jim and I have been working together for 12 years. Okay. And things come full circle. The original brewmaster for Firestone Walker, Jeffers Richardson, has come back to the company. He's being brought on in kind of a multifaceted position where he'll be doing a lot of beer dinners and a lot of kind of what we call revolution work, going out and talking to people, but he'll also be living in the Buellton area and kind of be keeping watch over the barrels in the new Barrel Works project. So, we're bringing back some of our original talent, which is, speaks a lot about the company as well. It's really cool. I get to work with the original brewmaster again, and Jim Crooks is being able to actually exercise his creative license with the Sour Beer project.
So 2013, Firestone Walker. What do we look for?
Velvet Merkin will be kind of the funnest thing that we release. You'll see some draft wild ales, Little Opal, Agrestic that we talked about, and Pivo Pilsner. And those will be the highlights for sure.
Very cool. All right, guys, so GABF 2012, Matt from Firestone Walker, an honor, obviously, sir. So can't wait to try the beers. We have a whole night of food and beer pairing to try. So thank you, guys. Firestone Walker Double DBA is out right now. That's the big release. I think
16 is on the horizon.
Yeah, 16 will be out very shortly. So look for it, guys, and cheers.